Hi, I'm sharing this today because somebody put it on my wall. I'm aware that your newswire does deliver fake news sometimes, apparently, but nonetheless there have been this type of actions, you know, really draconian punishments, murders of people who've been labelled a paedophile, okay, or who've been found guilty of paedophilia, and the law has been shown not to work. Okay, and the reason why I shared it was because the person who put this on their Facebook said justice is done. Now myself, as a survivor of 17 years child sexual abuse, I've had to look into this. I've had to heal myself, help others, and also I've tried to understand the whole issue. I've researched it very thoroughly, and I am in no doubt whatsoever that a lot of it does stem from the persecution of women and children that began in Britain with the invasion of Rome with William the Conqueror, when our Celtic Christianity was replaced by the Roman usurpation of Christianity that stripped women and children of all their rights. And that went on for 1,000 years, right up until the 1970s actually, in Britain, where women and children basically had no rights, and women and children to this very day are judged a minor human being. That means a lesser human being, an unimportant human being. Crimes against children are a minor concern, and children aren't receiving justice. Now, as I say, the person that shared this on their Facebook said justice is done. Okay? Regardless of whether the story is true or not, they said justice is done. That a person suffers an ISIS-style punishment. This is from a Western people who apparently are all very concerned about Sharia law being implemented in our countries. But they're celebrating. That's what disturbed me, was that underneath this story, it was just like a celebration. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, but the point is that as far as I'm aware, it's exactly these type of draconian punishments that's gone on from century after century after century. The brutalisation of humanity, the brutalisation of children who were regularly beaten, because apparently it says in the Bible, spare the rod and ruin the child. Well, when you understand that the rod is the law, okay, then you understand how children are ruined when the law is failing to protect them. Okay? And how people are driven to committing these type of draconian acts. Now, that is not the kind of world that I would like to live in. Okay? That doesn't bring me, as a survivor, any comfort. As Jesus said, an eye for an eye will leave the whole world blind. These people need locking up. They need putting in psychiatric units because they've got a psychosexual disease. That is what they are suffering from. It's a disease that has been allowed to fester and spread because children are just minors, because women were second-class citizens, because we live in a society governed by the Luciferian law of might equals right to do as thy will. And these kind of punishments do not help anybody, do they? Alright, a paedophile has been taken out, if the story is true. A paedophile's been taken out that otherwise would have been around the local community. So who is really responsible for this murder then? The judge that allowed a paedophile to walk free. That's who is responsible. Because our children are not getting justice. This isn't the kind of justice. This isn't justice, is it? People taking the law into their own hands and issuing out draconian punishments. Suppose somebody's innocent. This is why we have a legal system, isn't it? So people go to court, they get tried, we look at the evidence, and they get prosecuted. Slamming them in jail, what does it achieve really? We need to understand, try and find a way to treat these people. If they can't be treated, put them in a gated community for life. They're not allowed to mix, to go anywhere near children. So that was why I shared it. And a lot of people did say, oh, but you know, your newswire does fake stories. But like I say, that wasn't the point of why I shared it. I shared it to make this exact point that I've made here, that this does not help anybody. Because really our main prime concern should be around the victims. What is being done to help the victim, the 8-year-old child in this case? Why was the person allowed to walk free from court? Now, a lot of people are aware that I've been covering the Hampstead case, and there's been a big public debate about it, and people say, well, I believe the children, and some say, no, I don't believe the children, and blah, blah, blah. But all of that is irrelevant, because what is important here is the fact that the children did not receive basic justice. A crime report was delivered. There were details given that supported the crime report and could be proven one way or the other, i.e. detailed descriptions of some of the named and known abusers' genitals. And then there was also medical evidence confirming in both children damages consistent with the children's allegations of repeated anal rape by various adults. Okay? Arrest criteria was fully satisfied. So go and make some arrests, please. Go and do some investigations, please. But no, that didn't happen. Instead, the children were removed from their mum, and while in care of the local authorities where many of the suspects were employed, are employed to this very day, oh, suddenly the children, both of them, decide to give a retraction. Okay? They decide to retract. Now, on later examination of the retractions, they're very shoddy, they're only partial, and the IPCC complaints upheld the mother's complaint that the retractions do appear to be led by the interviewing officer. So that's where we stand today, right now. Okay? They do appear to be led by the interviewing officer. So what is an interviewing officer, a policeman, doing? Coercing children to retract a very serious crime report that includes murder of trafficked babies. Is that what we pay our police to do? Instead of acting on fully satisfied arrest criteria, they snatch the children, and then a few days later they're coercing them to give a retraction. So I'm going to play you a little bit of this interview.
It depends how much. I won't go too long. If you get a little bit tired, you tell me, then we'll stop. Yeah? So if you say, oh, I've had enough, we'll stop.
Or I'm tired.
If you're tired, yeah. So if you say to me, I'm tired, or I've had enough, we'll stop.
Okay.
Yeah, I promise. Was what you told me the truth?
Yeah.
So all about the stuff about the babies,
Yeah.
and the church and all that?
No, the babies. The baby, no, well, there is some of the babies killed, yeah.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yes, but not much. Not every single day. Not every single day. Like killed. No, not like that.
Okay. Because I heard you watched the film Zorro. Is that right?
Yeah.
And there was someone killed with a bear, weren't there? Because the way it sounded to me similar to to the way you told me about the babies, and that's why I was a bit wondering, are babies actually killed, or is it something that you've been made to say?
Yeah, it's something I've been made to say.
So are babies being killed?
No, not much, but there is, yeah. But not much.
By who?
By my dad. Not much.
Are you sure? I'd say it's okay. If it hasn't happened, it's okay, as long as we talk about it now, okay?
Yeah. So I lied about it because he made me see it.
There's two things. So first of all, you see, like...
So I've just played a small extract from that. It actually gets worse, you know. I could go through the whole thing and it's just absolutely damning. Okay. But there you've got it. You've got the veiled for threat here, haven't you? It's okay. It's okay if it's happened, if it hasn't happened. It's okay. As long as we talk about it now. Okay. So, don't forget, these are two children who themselves have admitted to being forced to participate in the murder of babies. So, it doesn't take much to add 2 and 2 together, does it? That these children, they've been taken off the mum, they're in care and control of the local authorities where many of the lawful suspects are employed. And they've been told, right, well, you know, if you keep saying that you've helped kill babies and stuff, you do realise you could end up going to prison for a very long time because you've admitted to killing babies. You do realise that, don't you? And the little girl, which I've shared the recording in another video, in a previous video, she does say towards the end of her interview, and this is just from memory, but this is the basic gist of what she said, was I was really worried that I was going to get into a lot of trouble if I kept on saying all those other things. That's what she says at the end of her retraction interview. So that, to me, is a red flag along with this. So we don't trust the retraction interviews, but these are what closed the case. Okay, so after the case was closed, the mum and her partner, they'd been implicated in the retractions. You heard the little boy, they were trying to persuade him to say Abraham had made him say all these things. This is the mum's partner who she'd only been with for a few months when the children gave their disclosures while they were on holiday abroad. Apparently a 2-week holiday, according to the British authorities now, that these two spent the whole 2 weeks plying the children with cannabis and forcing them to deliver this false crime report to police. Okay. So why is it that a mother who's got no mental health problems, she's a professional woman, independently solvent, she's a yoga teacher, vegan, she's raised her children on a vegan diet, that she and her partner of just a few months would force her children through torture and cannabis to admit themselves to police that they have participated in killing and eating babies, and also include detailed descriptions of teachers' genitals that could be instantly disproven just by looking at the teacher's genitals. So why would they do that? Now, if these were implicated when the police heard the retractions, why didn't they arrest them both? Isn't it a crime to torture children and give them cannabis and force them to memorise the most horrific details? Isn't that a crime? But no, they didn't arrest them. They closed the case. Why? Why didn't they arrest him, for example? Because they knew very well that then that would go to a regular court, and then the original allegations would have been have to look at, wouldn't they? And the medical evidence, because he couldn't be responsible for the medical evidence. He'd only known the family for a few months. The medical evidence reports long-term child abuse. See? And then they would have had to look at the very shoddy, partial and actually led retraction interviews, wouldn't they? No, so they closed the case. So what does the mother do? She tries to get her children back. She gets told that she can't have her children back because apparently she failed to protect them. Well, how can a mother protect her children from what's happening to them while they're at school? How can she protect her children when the police will not even act on fully satisfied arrest criteria? So she issues a complaint against the police. Then she complains to the Independent Police Complaints Commission, and they refuse her complaint. So then she complains to complaints against the Independent Police Complaints Commission, and they upheld her complaint in October 2015. This was 5 months after the SHAM, the criminally negligent High Court judgment that found the one suspect who attended, the dad, completely innocent on strength of nothing more than his word. A man who's never been arrested or investigated. Now, in that High Court fact-finding hearing that was held in March 2015, that has now been totally discredited by the IPCC report, a top child psychologist stood up in court and stated to the court that the little girl had told her, in her interview with that little girl, that Abraham had even accused the mum of being part of the gang. So does that sound to you like a collusion between these two? Or does it sound to you like a man who's only known a family for a few months has had to deal with these very, very naughty children whom he discovered had been running his toothbrush around the loo, and he'd become very ill with a gastro illness while he was on holiday? Children who've been told by their dad to covertly attack mum and her boyfriend. Well, obviously, on hearing this disclosure, he's thinking, was she part of the gang? Okay? That, again, is a red flag. Go and check the court transcripts. That is what the top psychologist said. So, how is it that a mother, she's got no professionally diagnosed mental health problems, but the dad has. The dad, by order of local authorities, was forced to attend Tavistock Clinic for 3 years in order to treat his violence and aggression. The estranged dad. Okay? And that is the problem. That is what we're upset about, is the fact that this case was never investigated. How else did Jimmy Savile get away with all his crimes for so long? Because children's crime reports were ignored. He was allowed to abuse more and more and more children. To the extent he got a knighthood. That's how powerful he became. He was allowed to climb from power to power to power. What was happening to his victims? The hundreds of victims that he left behind. What's happened to them? Who is focusing on them? Who's helping them? And then after that, we come to this, don't we? This man, President Trump. Now, this is a recording. I'll leave you all the links to all of these things that I'm sharing. This man, there's 16 women, professional, credible witnesses come forward to say that he is sexually assaulted, sexually abused them, sexually attacked them. This shares the narration of a sworn affidavit that was handed into the courts before he even stood for presidency, describing Mr. Trump as a child abuser, a paedo-sadist, against a 12-year-old and also another girl who was about, what, 13, 14, who he raped and assaulted, physically assaulted, and threatened with death if she spoke about it. Not surprisingly, when he became president, the girl was persuaded to withdraw her crime report, her court application, because she was receiving death threats. You know, you're talking about a guy who's supported by the kind of people who will ram their car into a crowd of protesters. So how did this man, with all these allegations against them, whether you believe him or not, because as I say, it's not for us to judge, it needs to go to court, doesn't it? But there's enough evidence there to provide what we call lawful suspicion. So therefore, he needs to be investigated and it needs to go to court. He should never have even been allowed to stand for president. And how do you think it makes people like me feel, survivors of child sexual abuse, to witness the most powerful nation on earth has elected as its president, apparently, him? And I say apparently because we can't forget that thousands of American voters in each state were denied their right to vote just because they shared the same name with, or the same surname as people from another state. And he's got his finger on the nuclear button. A man who is recorded with his confessions of his crimes against women, and even while eyeing up his next potential victim. And we're supposed to dismiss that as locker room talk. Really? So America has elected a man into power, into the presidency, the kind of man who in private talks like that about women. What kind of father votes for that person? What kind of mother votes for that person? People need to ask themselves that. Because this psychosexual disease is prevalent. So every sex offender, every man who's done something, yeah, we can just forget it. You know, it isn't important. Alright, so he grabbed a woman in the pussy. So what? Because that's the attitude, isn't it? That's the attitude that is still here today from 1,000 years of degradation against the woman and child. It was never legal. It was always a crime. Just because a pope says, oh yes, that women and children, they're second and third and fourth and fifth class citizens. No. He was always wrong. He was always a liar. He was always an anti-Christian approach. But we've been suffering that mentality for how long? And it is time to put an end to it. We are never going to end this psychosexual disease until we start arresting and investigating. When children make crime reports to police, an arrest criteria is fully satisfied. That's the point of the Hampstead case. Now, these two. Okay. This is a Palestinian man. He lived in Israel for 19 years. Never had a friend with a Jew. As he said, the self-segregation was real. This is a Jewish man. He's in New York. Oh, his best friend now is a Jew. Jesus loves these two. Okay? He's a Jew. He's a Muslim. Jesus loves them. Jesus is with them. Because that is who supported me through my childhood, through my life. Jesus, that is what gave me faith to stay alive, to have faith in compassion and humanity, to have faith that not all men were like my father or my uncle or all the other men that abused me. That Jesus, as a representation of a true human male, as the Son of Man, as he says 78 times in the Bible. 78 times Son of Man, okay? A real male human being. That is whom I believe in. Obviously, they believe in it. But in a society where people are segregated, he never had chance to make friends with a Jewish person. The Jewish people in Israel don't have chance to make friends with each other. It's forbidden, really, isn't it? We're not allowed to be human. We have to judge each other. Oh, you're a Muslim. No, I'm not going near you. Oh, you're a Jew. You're a Jew. I'm not going near you. Oh, you're a Christian. Oh, no, no. This is the kind of divisions that the good people have to live under. But these paedophiles, they know no division. They don't care. They don't care what culture, what nationality, what age. They don't care. Are you rich? Are you powerful? Are you prepared to abuse a child? Welcome to our circles. That's the get out of jail free, isn't it? So our police, apparently they haven't got enough resources to prosecute crimes against children. Okay, they haven't got enough resources to do it. Oh, but they've got plenty of resources to do this for marijuana, a harmless plant, bang down doors, armed police. How many people are in prison in Britain and America for the fact that they've had any connection with this harmless plant? How many? So, you know, maybe it's time to decriminalise the harmless plant that actually we need. Maybe it's time to decriminalise that, so police can devote all their time and attention to arresting child abusers and investigating crimes against children, because that is the only way we're going to stop this psychosexual disease. It is a disease. It is not normal, as a lot of people are trying to promote now. Oh, it's normal to want to have sex with children. No, it is not. It is not normal. It's only normal in an abnormal world governed by the Luciferian law of might equals right to do as thy will. Okay? Luciferian law is gone when people stand up for universal law of abundance and compassion that upholds all our rights. Women's rights, children's rights, human rights, animal rights, plant rights, earth rights. When it upholds our right to live with respect. And in Celtic Christian society, before Rome planted its so-called Christian boot on us, children were given the same respect as is given to a priest. They were considered pure and holy. And women had equal rights. Women owned property, they had autonomy, and even they were warriors. So we need to get back to reality, okay? And then forward into the future. Because nothing is ever going to end, and everything is going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And it is a well-known fact, you know, this is from the EU. This is their report on youth radicalisation. And I'll leave you the link to it. And it explains in no uncertain terms that denial of human rights, denial of justice creates radicalisation. So, you know, in those people's country, okay, where Palestinians, ordinarily good, compassionate, caring people, are driven to becoming a suicide bomber. Because they're not getting the human rights. They're not receiving justice. Their children are being shot, incarcerated, because they're a Palestinian. They're being robbed of their homes and their farms. That's child abuse on a massive scale. And it does drive people to committing sadistic and criminal acts. Some people will crack. And, you know, and then finally, we have this, don't we? These recent fires in California. Bang, bang, bang. Okay, these are not wildfires, are they? How can a wildfire have hit this enclave? In particular, look at it. The houses have literally been levelled to the ground. But, oh, the trees are all fine. They've been hit by an energy weapon. Let's face the fact of it. We're dealing with a new world order and it's Agenda 21. He couldn't give a shit about our kids. Because they're so stupid! Instead of looking at the wealth of humanity we have today and employing them and giving them a decent wage to clean our planet up and build a sustainable society, no, they want to kill. How many people? Go and look at the Georgia Guidestones. 6.5 billion people they want dead. Wake up, people. Stand up for your rights to live lawfully under universal law. Jar did not ask us to go forth and multiply so we could all be murdered in a giant bloodbath by criminal child abusers. There's enough people on this planet today to clean up the corporate filth. One corporation, TEPCO, has destroyed Japan and the Pacific Ocean. One corporation. That is not humanity. And they have used an energy weapon here, otherwise what else could it be? We saw it on 9/11. I've just had to witness that poor man, the father of the people that died on 9/11. 9/11 is a classic example, okay, of the energy weapon that was used, along with thermite. You know, they tried to divide the movement with that. Oh, it was thermite. No, it wasn't. It was an energy weapon. It was both. It's obvious it was both. The thermite to give the appearance of collapse, to break the building up from within, and then the energy weapon to turn all the material into dust. As happened, go and check the seismic reports. They don't lie. That building did not hit the ground in solid form. These are the kind of things it's going to happen until you stand up for your children's rights, until America stands up for its constitution, until you remove this criminal, this lawful suspect from being president. It's outrageous. Oh, but he calls it fake news, apparently. Well, he is the master of fake news, isn't he? Because he's just told the world that he's going to move the American embassy into Jerusalem. Okay? And then what does he do? Within a few days, signs the official waiver that the American embassy is going to stay where it is in Tel Aviv. So why did he do that? Why make a statement that he's going to move the American embassy into Jerusalem and then within days sign the usual waiver that every other president has signed to say that it's staying in Tel Aviv? He did it on purpose to wind people up, to incite violence and aggression from Muslims so they can point the finger at them and say, oh, look at them, they're all mad, look, they're burning the American flag, they're evil, blah, blah, blah. They're playing games, they're playing games. So that was fake news, wasn't it? From the president. Oh, I'm moving the American embassy into Jerusalem. But he's not. This is so serious, and our children need help. Our children need help. What has happened in Britain is a fucking nightmare, okay? What these children have received for justice, not just the 2 children, but all the other children that they refer to, including hundreds of trafficked babies. The crime report, arrest criteria was fully satisfied. Arrest somebody, please. Okay? We don't want, no, people having their heads chopped off by who doesn't bring any satisfaction, does it? Are we going to chop every paedophile's head off then? No, we need to sort this out. We need to do it humanely. We need to do it compassionately, lawfully. That is what we need. Our planet does need cleaning up. Our planet can sustain the people of today. And as I've always said, right, you worried about population explosions? Well, in every civilised so-called country where there's been a modicum of law and civil rights, birth rates have plummeted. Because when women have a choice, when women have rights, They don't have lots of children. In every country where a woman has no rights, where women and children have no rights whatsoever, that is where the population explosions are taking place. And people forget that the average age, mortality rate, the average age in those countries is what? 35 to 40. If the child manages to survive the first 5 years. Infant mortality is sky high. So, you know, this is serious, and you people out there, you do need to wake up. You do need to start asking yourself, what are you doing here? Because as far as I'm aware, where God created this planet, the universe, universal intelligence, created humanity to be guardians of this planet, to look after the life of our planet, like Noah did. Why do you think Noah was chosen? What did he do? He rescued animals and plants, didn't he? That is what we're here for, to care for our planet. But oh no, we're not allowed to care for our planet. We're not even allowed to care for our children. We're not even allowed to stand up for justice for our children. No, because what happens to you? Oh, you end up having to flee the country because you've been accused. Wrongly accused. She was accused of uploading videos of her children onto YouTube. The police had access to those videos. Lots of people had access to all of those videos. She was facing 7 years in prison. So she had to flee the country. No. It is time. It is time to wake up. And as I say, I'll leave you these links. This guy, I'm sorry, President Trump, but you are a lawful suspect and you should not be President of the United States. It's an abomination, and it really is. It's an abomination, okay? And if this world carries on to tolerate it, if the people cannot stop themselves from supporting crimes, people who commit crimes against women and children, if you think that's alright, there's something wrong with you. And if that is the bulk of humanity, well, let them do the worst and destroy the whole of humanity, because that is what they will do, okay? This is not a lie. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is a fact. How is it possible for bricks and concrete to be reduced to nothing while the trees are still standing in a wildfire? How is it possible that 2 children, the arrest criteria is fully satisfied and nobody can make any arrests? And we're supposed to just keep quiet about that and say, oh well, of course it wasn't happening, when we know it is, when the UN Child Protection Committee have identified every single one of the crimes described by those 2 children as happening in central London regularly. And the UN claim that the people acting in gangs and groups to commit such crimes are able to operate with impunity, without fear of arrest. Okay, that's what impunity means. So who's got the freedom here? Because apparently the bankers are too big to prosecute. He's too big to prosecute, because that's your Luciferian law, isn't it? Might equals right to do as thy will. Well, fuck off, Lucifer, because Jesus is coming home.